Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are absolutely unpacking a fascinating deconstruction of data-driven charity. We're looking at a model put together by a team from the Harvard Business School Alumni Association that literally flips everything we know about philanthropic return on investment right on its head. So let's jump right into the core of what makes this so incredibly unique.
Okay, let's dive into this. 2,246.9. Seriously? In the financial world, seeing a return multiplier like that over 2 decades, it sounds like pure fiction. But in the model we're exploring today, this is the actual projected 20-year return on investment for just a single donated dollar. Right, so you're probably asking, how on earth does $1 generate thousands of dollars in value? Well, it takes a complete mental shift in how we visualize a donation.
To wrap our heads around that massive number, we have to contrast two totally different approaches. Think about the traditional charity model. A dollar goes in, a pound of food is bought and eaten, and boom, the transaction is over. That's it. But AmpleHarvest.org does something wildly different. They don't use a donated dollar to buy food at all. They use it to build a lasting connection. Imagine that donated dollar as a seed. You plant it once, and it connects a local gardener, someone who already has a bunch of surplus veggies, straight to a community pantry. And that connection? It yields harvest year after year after year.
Unlocking the gardener network. Now, conceptually, sure, that sounds amazing. But mathematically, you gotta wonder, what is the actual magic trick here? How is a multiplier of that size logically possible without constantly having to pump in new money to buy more food?
And this brilliantly illustrates the engine driving those wild numbers. It's a 4-step logic pipeline. First up is reach. Funding helps inform and activate home gardeners. Step 2 is donate. A chunk of those newly informed gardeners take their extra backyard harvest and donate it locally. Step 3, and this is absolutely crucial, is repeat, because these are active gardeners, right? They keep gardening, which means they donate again in future growing seasons without costing the charity another single acquisition dollar. And finally, step 4 is multiply. These retained gardeners talk. They tell their friends, they refer neighbors, which spreads the idea like wildfire and brings in entirely new donations. All of this happens without buying a single piece of food. It's an unstoppable compounding momentum loop.
But an engine is really only as good as the data fueling it. To validate this whole logic loop, that Harvard Business School alumni team went out and gathered foundational survey data. Back in 2014, they surveyed 666 gardeners, and guess what? Almost half, actually 49.4% to be exact, were completely willing and able to donate their surplus crops. And we are not just talking about a stray tomato or two here. The gardeners who were willing and able averaged a staggering 277 pounds of extra produce every single year. Just think about that. It is a massive, untapped reservoir of fresh food.
Building off that survey evidence, the HBS team layered in some very specific historical model assumptions to make the math work. First, they estimated costs about $35 to acquire and inform a new gardener. Out of the folks who were willing and able, they assumed a pretty conservative 40% activation rate. They also baked in a 10% annual attrition rate. People moving away, deciding not to plant a garden one year, things like that. But here is the absolute secret sauce: a 50% referral rate among the retained gardeners. This is exactly how the network expands organically without spending cash to buy food. Oh, and just to keep the math strictly honest for all the finance folks out there, they applied a 4% discount rate to express the value of those future produce donations in today's dollars.
So we've got the logic, we've got the data, and we've got the assumptions. The next logical step? Let's see how all this interacts mathematically over a 2-decade timeline. Let's look at the 20-year ROI.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just watching that snowball effect in action. In year 1, a single donated dollar generates about $5.21 in modeled produce value. Not bad, right? But by year 5, thanks to all those repeated harvests and word-of-mouth referrals, that exact same dollar has now generated $46.20 in cumulative value. Fast forward to year 10, and you're looking at over $213. And by year 20, that initial $1 investment has somehow scaled to $2,246.93. It's literally the power of compounding connections.
Let's scale those individual dollars way up to see the broader impact. The model runs a scenario with a hypothetical recurring donation of $60,000 a year. So over 20 years, that's $1.2 million in total donations. But when you apply this compounding model, that $1.2 million generates a jaw-dropping present value of approximately $2.70 billion. I mean, wow! Translating that into actual food on the table, it equates to roughly 2.17 billion servings of fresh produce. It's almost hard to wrap your head around.
Updating to 2026. Naturally, we need to point out that these massive numbers actually come from the most recent 2026 recalculation of that original historical HBS model. So let's break down exactly what changed in this 2026 update to give us those numbers. Really, it comes down to two critical metrics shifting. First off, the overall U.S. gardener universe expanded, and I mean significantly. The original model estimated there were about 42 million gardeners. Today, that number is sitting at 62 million. That is a massive 47.6% growth in national market headroom for the charity. Second, the estimated retail value of the produce went up. By pulling USDA data and adjusting it to July 2026 using the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index, the value of a single pound of fresh produce bumped up from $2.41 to $2.53.
Models versus reality. So the crucial point is, when we're tossing around billion-dollar figures and these astronomical multipliers, we really have to take a breath, step back, and do a transparent reality check to distinguish a purely mathematical model from ground-level reality.
As the source material very transparently states, this is a model of long-term potential, not a guarantee or a measured historical return. Basically, this massive multiplier depends entirely on those core assumptions continuing to hold true over the years. The retention of the gardeners, how often they refer people, the initial activation costs, the crop yields, all of it has to remain pretty consistent. If retention drops off a cliff, or if people just stop talking to their neighbors, the multiplier shrinks, period. This is simply a projection of what is absolutely possible when a connection-based system is firing on all cylinders. But, even if we decide to aggressively dial back our expectations, the results are still incredible. The workbook doesn't just look at that recurring $60,000 annual donation that shoots us up to the 2,246 to 1 return. It also models what happens if a donor just gives a single one-time acquisition gift while still accounting for the ongoing retention costs over the years. And get this, even in that much more conservative scenario, the model still yields an incredible 160 to 1 return by year 20. The fundamental, game-changing efficiency of connecting surplus food with local need, it just doesn't disappear. Which brings us to a final, really provocative thought. We've dug into the survey data, the HBS assumptions, and all the updated math out to 2026. If a sustainable, connection-based model allows just one single donated dollar to keep producing fresh, healthy food for 20 solid years, how should we be rethinking the way we fund our future? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the data, and we'll catch you next time.